Welcome to Practically Fit, Real Fitness Over 40. I'm Alex.
And I'm Abbie.
And today we're going to talk about why we gain weight as we age.
So some people call this dad bod. And I've also seen the term mum bod making the rounds too. So here's a few of the questions we'd like to cover today. Is this middle-aged mom or dad bod inevitable? Why, when you hit this age bracket, does weight gain suddenly go straight to your stomach? What might be some of the biggest mistakes that we are all making when trying to fight against this? And what can we do to slow down the weight gain?
That's right, Abby. We took a deep dive into these questions, and we're doing the research so you don't have to. You can just listen to the podcast. So let's talk about dad and mom bods. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately as I hit my mid-40s. I actually turned 45 this year. And yeah, over the past couple of years, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting that classic, like, middle-aged man stomach where it's just inevitable as much as I work out, no matter what I do, that it's happening. And I kind of feel like even like my own son jokes with me about, oh, you've got a dad bod going now. Like, I'm still like fit. I still think I look pretty good, but there's just that creeping little stomach. And like, you know, I see myself on camera sometimes or something for work, and I think, oh, I gotta suck that in. Or you see it in photos. We did a race here a few weeks ago, and I looked at the photos and I thought, gosh, I don't know if it was like my running jersey or what, but I looked like I had the dad bod going.
Although I looked at those photos and pointed out that there was an amazing photo of Alex with flying feet. So any runners out there will know that that is the photo you want.
Yeah, well, I still feel like I have a little bit of the dad bod going now as I hit 45. And Abby, this is something we talk about often, and we kind of agonize over it, but I do think it's a bit of an inevitable part of growing old, and there's only so much you can do. So that's what.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I think you have to be really careful not to compare yourself back to your 20-year-old self, because you are just at a different time in your life, and it's probably not terribly healthy to be expecting your body to look like it did when you naturally had a faster metabolism and you were just at a different point.
Yeah, and we exercise a lot, and the exercise regime is good, having that strong exercise regime, but there's other factors. There's diet, there's alcohol intake, there's sleep. These are really all factors that can play a role in weight gain as we age.
And Alex mentioned a moment ago is it inevitable? And if it is, what's to blame for it? It would seem that slowing metabolism would be to blame, right? I just mentioned we shouldn't compare ourselves to when we were 20 and our metabolism was different. Before we go on, let's just make sure that we're all clear in terms of what we mean by metabolism. And that is everything that happens in your body to turn everything you ingest, everything you drink and eat into energy. If that slows down, will you gain weight? Well, actually, there seems to be disagreement on how much metabolism slows as we age. Traditional wisdom was that metabolism slows as we age. According to the National Institute of Health, if you're an adult in the US, you can expect to gain between 10 to 25 pounds between your 20s and your 40s. And they also say that exercising and losing weight becomes more challenging, especially as you get to the ages of 30 and 40. However, there's a more recent study in the publication Science that showed metabolism is actually pretty stable from age 20 to age 60. And then it slows about 1% per year after that. A lot of the analysis on this study suggests that other lifestyle factors may be more responsible for your weight gain as you age.
Yeah, that's right. So some mixed evidence there, but the newer study is pointing to these lifestyle factors. And so can't necessarily point at this traditional thing of oh, I turned 45 and my metabolism is slowing down. That may not be the case based on some of this newer research.
Or, if you're a woman, and I'm not disregarding the impact of perimenopause or menopause, I'm in that phase of life myself, but it can be easy to be it's just menopause or weight gain, nothing I can do about it.
Right. So when I think about myself, I was a super skinny teen, to the point where people used to make fun of how skinny I was or say that I had monkey arms or things like that. I gained weight as I began strength training in college, really. That's when I first put on some weight. So I was maybe like 125 pounds going into college when I was 18, slowly gained weight through, that time period and through my 20s. And I'd been pretty stable and, kind of like mid 150s range. But just in the last few years, now I'm up to like 165. And so I've hit the weight that I always associated with my dad having. Like, I feel like he was always 165 pounds. So is that the slowing metabolism? Based on some of this research, maybe not. Maybe it's other factors. But when we think about that research that we just cited, maybe a dad bod or mom bod doesn't have to be completely inevitable unless something else is at play. So there's also hormonal changes that come into play here. So with men, the research shows, declining testosterone is important. And we took a look at this, and there's different estimates of how much testosterone declines over time. But generally, studies show this starts at age 35. So if that's the average, I'm about 10 years into that right now. You mentioned menopause or perimenopause earlier, Abbie. So for women, when you look at the hormonal changes, it's declining progesterone and estrogen. So menopause definitely has an impact, but it's not necessarily the same experience for everyone. And we were chatting about this before this episode. I mean, that could be an entirely, we probably would have to do an entire standalone episode on experiences around menopause. But the bottom line here really is that hormonal changes can decrease muscle mass, which can result in increased weight gain. And for men, that can start happening at as early as age 35. Another thing I was interested in when it comes to dad bod and mom bod is why does the weight gain go straight to your stomach, right? So I did some further investigation into this and I found a study from 2014. And I thought I would have all the answers. And by the way, just for informational purposes, when we talk about fat, the fat around your organs, so that's a lot of what may be responsible for that weight gain in your stomach or what has been called previously a beer gut. That is called visceral fat. So that's a really important distinction, that visceral fat that's around your organs. So I read this study. I thought I would have all the answers, but alas, the study said, and I quote, little is known concerning the reasons for this shift. The study cites multiple factors, including those hormonal changes I mentioned previously, but it's not good if you have this increasing visceral fat around your stomach and around your organs. That visceral fat increases the risk of disease. So this weight gain around our midsection, while it's natural, isn't the best thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what are some of the mistakes that we are making when trying to fight against this? And what can we do to slow the weight gain? A few things stand out to me when thinking about mistakes that we're making in our 40s and 50s. And many of these, like, I deeply resonate with. So the first one is, as well as not comparing ourselves to our bodies when we were in our 20s, we also can't, unfortunately, do the same things we did in our 20s.
That's right.
Like when I was younger, I would, be able to eat a ton of stuff and burn it off and be fine. So we can't eat and drink like we did in our 20s and 30s. You can still build those things into your diet, but I think you just have to be so much more intentional and, think about trade-offs.
Yeah, I feel like this is something we've been trying to get better with lately. We both love food. Food is a source of enjoyment. We like going out and trying different restaurants and trying new things. There is a bad habit in our house with the door dashing. My absolute favorite food in the world is a hamburger. And in my mind, I'm like, I gotta have a hamburger once a week. It's one of my joys in life. Sometimes it's a, fancy hamburger from a nicer hamburger joint. Sometimes it's just from Brahms down the street, but I want to have my hamburger. I like nachos. I like pizza. I don't have these things every day, but I want to enjoy them. So I think this is something that we struggle with, especially being busy with work and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like one of my guilty pleasures is chocolate. I love and want a bit of chocolate every day, but now it has to be a small piece of chocolate, not an entire chocolate bar. I also love chips or crisps, as I grew up calling them. But as as Alex says, I think we just have to start. You have to start being much more intentional and building those into your plan rather than just mindlessly eating.
Yeah, I went through a period like in my late 20s where I was really bad about fast food. I remember like I was at the time I was working kind of an earlier work schedule at that point in my career. And so I would get home at like 3, 4 p.m. And then I would just be tired because I got up early to go to work and my exercise habits weren't as good during that time period. So, I mean, I think there was a stretch where I was eating stuff like Taco Bell or,
Taco blah.
yeah, taco or drive-through burger joints or whatever, like pretty frequently throughout the week. And honestly, that's kind of like what led me to get into much better shape. And I haven't stopped since then. About 6 months before I turned 30, I just like this switch flipped and I was like, I'm eating poorly. I'm not exercising enough. I've got to do something. And so I had gotten up to kind of a similar weight to what I am now and dropped it. But obviously I was not middle aged at that point. So, I mean, these are things that you like battle throughout your lifetime. I do think, I mean, I mentioned DoorDash earlier. Like we go through these periods where we're like, we're not going to do that
It was our
anymore.
New Year's resolution
Yeah, well,
last
yeah,
year, and I
that,
think it lasted about a month.
yeah, and then it just like slowly builds up again, and it's easy and
Especially with teenage kids, right?
teenage kids, yeah, and that could be a whole other subject, the nutritional habits of teenage kids in the year 2026. But yeah, it's just it can be challenging when it comes to the lure of food. And I think this stuff starts to show up in your yearly wellness checks at some point. And Abby could probably tell you that I hate doing my yearly doctor's appointment and blood tests. She's very nonchalant about hers. It stresses.
I'm not nonchalant. I think it's like it's data, like, and it's there whether you do it or not. So, right, wouldn't you rather know it than not?
Right. I just go through this thing every year where I do the blood test and then for like a day or two I'm like stressing out about the results and especially with like cholesterol. So that's where I'm seeing it now in my mid 40s. It's for me it's a hereditary thing and my dad had high cholesterol so I'm like right on the edge. I work out a ton and this is the kind of stuff the eating that just starts to show up in those blood tests around this time period. I mean, I was like having conversations with people now about their cholesterol levels, which I think is like the most, I'm in my mid 40s or I'm in my 50s thing ever. I think the other thing that's huge is alcohol, right, Abby?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that there's been a real shift over the last few years. I actually saw something the other day was saying, like, are we in the period where we're seeing that shift across for alcohol the same as we saw for cigarettes? Because I think, when we were growing up, it was just such a embedded part of society, and you could argue it still is, but there's just so much more research about the damaging impact of alcohol, that it is a class 1 carcinogenic. Like, so I think more and more people are being conscious about that impact that can have on your body.
Yeah, and so maybe these younger folks who are not drinking are on to something. Speaking of that, one of the most interesting studies I saw when I was doing research on this was a study on metabolism that came out from Stanford University in the past couple of years. The headline on this study is Massive Biomolecular Shifts Occur in Our 40s and Our 60s. And so, what this study showed about your 40s was that, quote, significant changes were seen in the number of molecules related to alcohol, caffeine, and lipid metabolism, cardiovascular disease, and skin and muscle. So the molecules in our body are changing drastically in our mid 40s. And the study's author, Michael Snyder, said that changes to alcohol metabolism in your mid 40s, quote, result from an uptick in alcohol consumption in people's mid 40s, often a stressful period of life. So I thought that was interesting that they're seeing this like uptick in alcohol consumption in people's mid 40s.
Yeah, that I mean, kind of interesting. I always kind of associate alcohol consumption being higher for people in their like early years, like their 20s, but really interesting. The other thing I wonder about is like, as your body is changing and aging, is it just so much harder for your body to process alcohol? Like it is a toxin and your body has to process it out. So maybe there's something in that. I certainly know of myself, like, we're not huge drinkers, but I notice that if I have even one glass of alcohol, like one glass of wine, or it hits me very differently, and especially the next day compared to when I was younger.
Yeah, same thing, right? Like I had a day recently where I had like I'll have like maybe one whiskey or sometimes two whiskeys, but if I have three whiskeys,
He
uh
had that the other day watching the soccer.
yeah, that's not a good scenario. I feel like I'm recovering from that for like 2 days straight. So I also wonder about this thing about the uptake in alcohol consumption in people's mid 40s. You mentioned people drinking at younger ages. I think a lot of people who are younger may do the binge drinking thing on the weekends. Certainly when we were younger, I don't know about you, but you knew people who drank every night in some cases. But I didn't know a lot of people who did that. I just wonder if in the mid 40s, because they attribute this to like a stressful period of life, maybe people are drinking like a moderate amount every night or something along those lines. So maybe we need to rethink that nightcap to wind down, or or that phenomenon of I'll just have like one whiskey and then it turns into two whiskeys, because I know I'm often guilty of that. So I just think overall, aside from alcohol, diet becomes more important in your 40s. And this is something a lot of us face. There's never a bad time to think about making dietary changes. You don't have to wait for your New Year's resolution like we did on the DoorDash, because as New Year's resolutions are wont to do, that did not work out for us. So it's also always a good time to like get a wellness check, right? Like if you're not doing that, I was joking earlier about how much I don't like going to the doctor for my wellness check, but when I was younger, I didn't do it at all. And again, kind of around age 30, I started doing that and haven't looked back. So that's something that's like really important for folks.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And actually, I grew up in England. You didn't have a wellness check, right? Like it wasn't even something that was an option to you. I don't know. I've been out of living in England for 10 years, so maybe it is. And if any of our listeners are in the UK, please feel free to drop into the comments. But in my experience, that wasn't something that you had. And I actually love that part of the American health system. There's many parts of the American health system I do not love, but that I think is really powerful because, as I said, like it gives you data and insights, and you can make changes. Couple of years ago in my wellness check, they said that my vitamin D was slightly low, so like I know that now, and I can do something about it. I think it's such an important part of looking after yourself is that preventative approach. It's so much more effective, obviously, than having to react to something. So yeah, completely agree on the wellness check. And I also think about just like making small changes. Sometimes we go in all or nothing on these things. And like if you just make small changes to your diet, like Alex said, he loves a hamburger. So don't say I'm never eating a hamburger again, but just don't eat one 4 times a week, right?
Eat
Like,
them once a week, right?
yeah, eat it once a week, or like build it into because that becomes sustainable. Like if you start, I find for me anyway, the minute I start being really restrictive, that's just not healthy. Like it doesn't work for me. So a second one that we wanted to explore is exercise and using exercise in combating weight gain. And for me, what used to work for me when I was younger no longer works for me. So I was a real cardio bunny for a number of years, whether it was running, HIIT, Zumba. Remember when Zumba came out on the Wii? I loved that. And that over reliance on cardio just doesn't work for you in the same way as you get older. Now, I have to say, I still love cardio. I'm not giving up running, but I think I've looked at it differently in terms of the type of cardio that I'm doing. And there was an interesting tidbit in that study on visceral fat that Alex mentioned earlier. And again, that is the fat that's around your midsection and around your organs. That really is the hallmark of a mum or dad bod. And it suggests you can prevent some of the shift in fat distribution to your midsection, even into your 60s and 70s, if weight gain is prevented and activity levels are maintained high. But when it's talking about activity levels, the study points to strength training and high intensity interval training. And so as we think about that and we think about the types of exercises we're doing, it's thinking about instead of doing runs, cycling, walking, um, as your sole form of exercise, also being sure to mix in strength training and thinking about how you can alternate some of those runs. So maybe you do some runs easy, steady, but then you have some runs where you're having intervals in them in some form or fashion. I think we've really seen this, Alex, haven't we, in terms of how we've been approaching our workout schedule and pattern. I know for years I would just go out and run as fast as I could every single run.
Yeah, I have been known to do that, but with the running lately, I think like again talking about over reliance on steady state or like zone 2 cardio, which that stuff is important, but mixing in intervals, like sometimes we go to the track to do workouts, although we haven't done that as much over the summer, but we do speed work in our running. I've been doing a lot of like speed work and tempo runs early in the morning, shorter distances. And then the strength training is just critical. I try to change things up from time to time. Like right now, I've really been enjoying calisthenics and doing more challenging calisthenics movements. And that's given me really great strength training over about the past 6 months. And you've been incorporating in a lot more strength training to your routine as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, everything that I've read, and I'm sure if there's any women listening to this who are over the age of 40, you will not have been able to get away from strength training and protein. Those two things seem to be coming at us hard and fast. But, everything that I've read has had that focus on how do you ensure that you're building strength. And I've been thinking about it not only from the perspective of how does it help me today? So like how does it support my running goals and my like fitness goals, but also longevity of life. Like I want to be able to be mobile as I'm older, and all of those exercises that you're doing in strength training are those that are going to keep you fit and healthy long into your life so that you can get up and down off the sofa by yourself, that you can climb the stairs still when you're older. So really kind of key part of that fitness for the rest of your life. And also the other thing I really like about strength training is you can get some of that high intensity into it. Like I did a workout yesterday and I did back-to-back supersets, and your heart rate really does go up when you're doing supersets. Or Alex went through a stage a couple of years ago where he was obsessed with kettlebell swings.
Yeah, you could do a lot of you mentioned HIIT training with kettlebells. So there's a lot of different ways that you can work that interval training into your workouts. If you don't like cardio or intense cardio, you can do it through weights as well. We talked about a couple of big mistakes that people make when it comes to dad bod, right? Like, so it's the eating like you're in your 20s as you get into your 40s and 50s. We talked about alcohol. We talked about relying on just kind of steady state cardio. I think another big mistake is not getting enough sleep. And so looked into this, and there's plenty of evidence out there that not getting enough sleep is linked to weight gain. And again, this goes back to hormones. The research that I looked at here was pretty complicated. So trying to put it into simple terms, if you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night, that means your hormones are altered and feelings of hunger can increase. So sleeping less means that your body might signal that it's hungry more often. And as we get into our 40s and 50s, like we mentioned earlier, things can be stressful. Maybe that's why people are drinking a little bit more. But this can also impact your sleep. You've got work. At this time in life, you're doing a lot with your career. It's your peak earning years. But at the same time, you got challenges with your finances, kids, maybe your kids are at that age where they're trying to get a car, or maybe they want to go to college, or there's just a lot of financial considerations there. Relationships can be challenging, right? Not me and Abbie. We're amazing, right? But so relationships can be very challenging. There's a lot of things that go on during this time period of your life, and it can impact your sleep. So working out that bedtime routine and making changes to improve sleep are critical. Some of the things that you can do, if you look this up for advice, limiting alcohol before you sleep, as we talked about earlier. Another big one, not eating too much before bed. And this,
Yeah, we were guilty of this one because, as Alex said, like I think you're at such a busy stage of your life, right? You've got work. Say you don't finish work till 6, then the kids need things. They've got activities or appointments to go to or whatever. And we were finding that we might not even be starting to cook dinner until like 7:30, 8 p.m. Also, I I had been used to eating dinner later. Like that was something that was just part of my family and how I grew up. But we also went to bed late. My parents were like late to bed people. And so okay to eat your dinner at 7 p.m. if you're going to bed at midnight, but we're trying to get into bed around 10:30. So if you're eating at 9, that's not
yeah.
ideal.
Or this will happen like when you go out to eat and you have a big meal. Even just the other night, we went out to eat and had kind of a big meal, and I didn't sleep as well.
Yeah, but that's also because that big meal was served to us in like 38 minutes straight.
Yeah. That's true. I'm not sure why all restaurants want to rush you through. Abbie points out this is a very American thing. So those are a couple of things that can help your bedtime routine. The other thing that's cited in terms of helping you with sleeping well is avoiding blue light. So phones, tablets, or TVs right before bed. Not sure how we score on that one all the time.
You know exactly how we score on that one all the
Yeah,
time, not
yeah.
good.
I enjoy watching TV occasionally before bed. Abbie likes to look at her phone
Occasionally,
sometimes.
Alex is the biggest TV addict I know.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that are out there. I find I sleep better if I do like yoga type stretching about 30 minutes to an hour before bed. Some of the things we found, obviously reading. I do.
I love
Yeah, I
reading.
notice on the nights where we read before bed, I typically sleep better. Maybe you get a nice cup of there's so many different types of relaxing teas out there now. The traditional one was sleepy time tea, which has chamomile in it. There's teas with valerian that help you sleep, or other just like relaxing teas
Or a
that can
nice
be.
bath with lavender or some other kind of salts in it. That I find that I sleep really well after I've had a relax in the bath.
Yeah. So, sometimes we have that drink before bed or have a big meal, but it's really about limiting those nights and trying to make the most of your sleep. So, bottom line, incorporating diet more into your life, improving your diet, building in strength and interval training into workouts, and getting enough sleep are the key factors that we saw in our research in helping to combat the dad or mom bod. So there you go.
Yeah. And just one other quick plug is the other thing I think that has made a real difference for us. And I know we talked about data with your wellness check, but data, like having our Garmin watches tell us what our sleep score is. I think that helps you be informed. And to your point there, Alex, where you said, try and limit it. If I've had a night where my sleep's been disrupted and I know it has, and I can see it on my watch, then being more conscious to just not make that happen for a second and a third night. So I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. We would love to hear your thoughts on any other tips that you might have about how you are personally combating the dad or mom bod. Please feel free to leave a comment on the episode on our Substack at practically.fit, or you can shoot an email to us by emailing alex@practically.fit, and we'll share your story and your insights on a future episode of the podcast.
That's right. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. So next week's episode of season 2 will focus on AI and fitness. Abbie and I are really excited about this one. It's really something we've been tinkering with for the past year or so. So we're going to talk about our experiences with using AI in our fitness, in our workouts, which is obviously a hot topic right now, as AI is the hot topic across everything. So stay tuned for that episode. And remember, when it comes to fitness, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be practical. We'll see you on the next one.